the Markkula Center for Applied Ethics and the Silicon Valley National Association of Corporate Directors presents
Good morning again. My name is Jim Balassone, Executive in Residence here at the Markkula Center for Applied Ethics. We appreciate your joining for this next section of our interview with Dick Levy, Chairman of the Board of Varian Medical Systems. How might you describe a good board meeting?
Well, I'm going to base my answer on 25 years of experience going to board meetings either as a board member, a chairman, or as a CEO reporting to the board, or as a manager reporting to the board. First of all, I would say that all boards have to cover the traditional governance responsibilities. They have to cover the financial performance, they have to cover the compliance strategy, etc. But beyond that, they have to focus on what the company needs. And let me illustrate this with an example. Many years ago when I was a new CEO, I was asked to give a presentation to the board on a new technology that we were introducing, a very, very elegant new technology. And the board at the time was made up of scientists and engineers who were fascinated by technology. We talked for 30 to 45 minutes about this new technology. Everybody was saying, gee whiz, this is great. Everybody enjoyed the meeting. Unfortunately, the technology failed because we didn't have the right people to implement the technology. And it cost too much, and it wasn't really something the customers needed that much. The board never asked those questions. And so in my view, the board wasn't doing its job. That was not an effective board. They were doing what they liked to do, which is talk about technology, but not doing what the company really needed, was advice on how to get that technology implemented. So that's one thing. A second effective board meeting keeps it simple. If management is making canned presentations, which are 45 minutes long, and there's not a lot of engagement of the board, that adds very little value. I'm very much in favor of a board meeting without canned presentations where management talks about what keeps them up at night, what bothers them, what problems are they addressing, and there's an open-ended discussion about it. So engagement of the board and open-ended conversation to me is much more important than long-winded presentations. Finally, I think that boards have to be constantly reminded of the big picture. To talk about details without relating them to the big picture, the big strategy, the big vision of the company, really doesn't use the value of the board the way it should be used. Board members are only there once every 2 or 3 or 4 months. Management is there 40 to 60 hours a day, every day of the week. So management knows a lot more details than board members. Board members have to be reminded of what the big picture is and how the individual actions that is being reported to the board fit with that big picture.
Dick, you mentioned strategy as a role of a corporate board. I've talked to many board members, and they believe that's the sole purview of the board. And I wondered if you might comment on that. Do you agree with that approach?
No, I don't. Some companies, some management teams are really good at strategy, but may not be so good at execution, or may not be so good at marketing, or may not be so good at financial performance. If the company is good at strategy already, the board doesn't need to spend a lot of time on it. And I will use the example of the Apple board. I'm not on the Apple board, but I can't imagine that the Apple board spent a lot of time second-guessing Steve Jobs' decision about product strategy. He was a genius. And the best thing for the board in that situation would be to stay out of the way and talk about things other than strategy.
Dick, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I have found that one of the most valuable things a board does is have one-on-one conversations with various managers. Board members can be mentors, they can be counselors, they can introduce managers to people they may not have met on their own who are relevant to the business. They can add a tremendous amount of value. I think board members can also add value with customers and with the investment community. I'll give you 2 examples. When I was a fledgling salesman back in the 70s, We had a product which wasn't working very well at all. Customers were angry. The chairman of the board at the time said, I'd like to meet those customers. I'd like to go out there and talk to them. And he asked me to be his host. So we traveled around to 4 or 5 customers, and he just listened, and he shook his head, and he was empathetic. And then he came back and he said to the management team of the company, fix this problem. I don't care what it costs. I don't care what your budget is. This problem must be fixed. This made a wonderful impression on management. It certainly made a good impression on the customers. And in the long run, it was the right thing to do, even though it ruined the budget. One other example I'll give is a board chairman that we had when we first became a company. And he attended one of our investor meetings. And he stood up at the end of the meeting and he said that many companies build products that help people to have better lives. We build a product that make people's lives possible. And that inspirational comment had an immense effect on our management team, also on the investors. So board members can play a role in one-on-one activities outside the boardroom.
Thank you, Dick.
Thank you, Jim.
This concludes this segment of our podcast. Please join us for the next section where we'll continue our discussion with Dick Levy.